you for joining this week's Tiger Bite. We're back from a short intermission to bring you all the news, views and interviews from Glasgow Speedway. I'm Derek Smith and joined once again by the refreshed, recharged, revitalised Brian Copeland. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Derek. I'm glad that's the aura that's coming across on the screen there for you.
It's very nice, Brian, to see you in your human form this evening, because the last Tiger Bite a couple of weeks ago, you looked a little bit like this.
I did, yeah. You stole half my face there.
So, you look a whole lot better, Brian. I'm glad the medicine worked for you. Brian, let's crack on. We've got a lot to fit into tonight's Tiger Bite. And first and foremost, I think we should look back over the weekend. Home and away clashes in the championship with Basement Club Berwick. And when the Tigers travelled to Shielfield on Saturday, I certainly had it down as a must-win meeting. Didn't quite work out like that, but in the end, I suppose it was damage limitation.
Yeah, I think when you look back at the scores, it was a funny sort of meeting in many ways. Things didn't, races didn't quite go the way you would expect, and things like that. So, it's one of those that you've got to put down to experience. At least we did pick up 2 points from it. I think that's, it's still a decent return. And you never know. Had we gone to Heat 15, we might well have taken 3. I think Stuart and the guys would have been looking at that one as a reasonably comfortable away win. On another day, we probably should have taken that, but I don't think it's one to dwell on. I think the important thing is that we were able to compete with the teams at the top of the league, home and away, over 2 legs. I think that's what we've got to start looking at now, is how do we perform, over 2 legs against these teams. And if you draw up Berwick, you're going to beat them quite easily over 2 legs. So, we've got to then look at how are we performing against other teams like Ipswich, Sheffield, Edinburgh, and teams like that. So I don't think it's too much to be concerned about, and I think that our performance on Sunday showed just how strong we still are.
I think you're right, Brian. Saturday night didn't make or break or define the season. Yes, there were some disappointments in some of the scoring within the team, but to come away with 2 league points was far from disastrous. Let's move on then to the return fixture on Sunday. And if Saturday night had been touch and go all the way through in terms of the scoreline, Sunday was the polar opposite. Were Glasgow particularly good, or were Berwick particularly poor, Brian?
A little bit of both, I think. I think we saw towards the end of the meeting that Berwick certainly had some guys in their team that could produce, a win or two. Obviously, I think Nick Morris had a particularly poor start to the meeting. I think he got second, and then in his tactical race, he had some mechanical issues of whatever kind in the first lap or so. He just couldn't get going. So that straight away killed off his challenge and probably any challenge that Berwick were likely to put in. David Howe and Nick, I think they got 3 of the last 5 race wins. So they did revitalise themselves a little bit later in the meeting. But yeah, I think it was a bit of both, really. I think we are good at home, and maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on our guys, because the likes of Tom Perry, guys like that, they did have to fight for some of the points and do things from the back, and Nike Luna was the same. So they did have to turn up on the day. It wasn't just a stroll from the tapes every race. So credit to our guys, they did go out and produce the goods, and it was a fairly comfortable win in the end, but we did have to work for it at times.
Yeah, I've been looking at some stats from the meeting. 11 heat winners to Glasgow, 4 to the Bandits, and heat advantages 9 to Glasgow and only 1 to the Bandits, and that perhaps was the telling factor in the end. As you say, lots of good point contributions from all of the Glasgow riders. Nike Luna declares himself fit again, having missed the trip to Berwick on Saturday, and scored 6 points. But there was a few bruises in the camp by the end of the meeting. There was falls for Tom, Nike and Jack Smith.
Yeah, and the win would have been even higher had those guys, a couple of those guys had not had falls. Thankfully, I think they've all come through relatively unscathed. I know Jack didn't play any further part in the meeting after his fall, but seeing him in the pits afterwards, it looked as though he would probably be okay, and would be able to get back on a bike. And I think he's back for Bellevue Colts, racing for them. So I wouldn't expect too many issues with Jack. And thankfully, the rest of the guys walked away from fairly nasty spills, because it could have been a whole lot different. And we've had luck on our side in that respect. Everyone walked away from the meeting okay, including a couple of the Berwick guys as well, who of course had falls. It was good to see them walk away from those.
Yep.
It was one of those meetings, kind of similar to the BT Sport match that we saw on Monday night, where it kind of seemed to have a bit of everything at times. And just one of those meetings that had a lot of stoppages. But thankfully, there was a lot of good racing thrown in to the mix, and the fans went away happy.
After the dust had settled at Ashfield on Sunday, I caught up with Glasgow team manager Stuart Dixon to assess the performance of the Tigers over the weekend. He ran the rule over some of our title challengers, our rivals for playoff spots, and he confirmed that Sunday's visit to Scunthorpe really is a must-win.
Okay, the championship back-to-back clashes against Glasgow and the Bandits are over. 58-32 victory for the Tigers at Ashfield this afternoon. I'm joined by Tigers team manager Stuart Dixon. Stuart, can we look first of all back to last night's trip to Berwick? Ahead of the meeting last night, Berwick, the basement club, Tigers vying for a playoff place, etc. Were you demanding a win last night? Did you expect a win last night?
We're certainly looking for a win, that's for sure. I felt we threw away some silly points. Aaron Summers obviously seized an engine in Heat 4. We were on a 4-2 and ended up losing a 4-2, 4-point swing. And I felt he was unfairly excluded in Heat 8 when we put him in, or I put him in, I should say, as a rider replacement ride in Heat 8 for Night Luna, which was our strongest RR on paper. I know Jacobs never meant it, but he lifted and he put Aaron with nowhere to go. And I felt that was, it was a wrong decision with the referee. So we threw away some points and we ended up getting ready to go into Heat 15 with Berwick having the choice of gates, and when we got the chance, for the match to basically shake hands and take the draw, we kind of went along with it, to be honest. We did the choice of gates, and at the time I thought, this might go the wrong way, and under the circumstances with today's meeting, still to race and all the riders were safe, and it was a bit, I know, if anything, it should maybe have been called to Heat 11 or 12 when the rain was coming down. The fact it was level, we were getting 2 points. I was already Night Luna down. I wasn't sure he was going to be fit for today. And we took the 2 points and we got up the road and we got another 3 points today. So 5 points wasn't too bad. You're right to say we could have done a wee bit more, but at the end of the day, 5's not too bad.
Stuart, I know you keep a keen eye, of course, on all the action up and down the country as far as the championship goes, and you'll be very aware that other teams who are rivaling us for playoff spots at the end of the season have obviously taken more points from Shielfield than we perhaps have, and it's not going to make or break our season, of course, coming back with 2 points last night, but were you disappointed? Did you think that we maybe fell short of what we should have done?
Yeah, I think so, deep down. You're rightly saying that other teams have done better, at Shielfield Park, but at the same token, I think we're one of the few teams that can go to Armadale and get something. Maybe Newcastle. I don't see other teams doing what we can do at those sort of tracks. So, but I'm not going to disguise the fact that we were looking to win last night for sure, yeah.
If Berwick obviously gave us a tough time of things around their own home show last night, it was far from the case this afternoon at Ashfield.
I fully expected to get 55 plus today, to be honest. On the road, they tend to struggle a wee bit. I think they're missing a couple of heat leaders on the road. They're certainly a tough team to beat at home, as it was proved against Ipswich last week as well. You've got to remember Nick Morris was missing last week and Berwick threw away a 5-0 at the early stages of the meeting, and Ipswich needed a 5-1 to get the 3 points. So they're a tough nut to crack around their own place, even though they've only won 3 meetings at home. But away from home, they do lack a bit of firepower, and to back up Nick Morris, I think that was evident today. But hopefully, I know Sheffield's still to go there twice. We'll be looking for Nick and the rest of the guys to do as a turn, that's for sure, you know what I mean?
Sure, looking at the league table, a 3-way tie currently, Edinburgh, Ipswich and ourselves tied on 47 points, but pleasingly we still have 3 or 4 meetings on hand on both of those clubs, and predominantly at home as well. We've got to capitalise on that.
Yeah, definitely. Sheffield are obviously, they get 2 wins in the last 3 weeks at Peterborough, but the bottom line is that, as far as I'm concerned, they got them with James Shanes as a guest. You know, he scored paid 8 and he scored paid 13 in 2 matches, and we've not really done that this season with guests. We've done it with our team on every occasion, and Peterborough feel a bit hard done by. They've lost 3 matches at home, and each time James Shane's guested, once for Newcastle, twice for Sheffield, and that must be a bitter pill to swallow. And Sheffield, fair play, they've used the route with their advantage, but they'll not be able to do that come playoff time. But it's put Sheffield to get 8 points in the last 2 away matches at Peterborough. It's put them, they've went from +8 to +16, and they overtook us obviously on Friday night. So to get 2 points, as I mentioned previously last night, puts us above them at +17, but they've came from nowhere. And if they were to, I know they've obviously Robert Branford doing, but they've came from nowhere, and all of a sudden now I kind of see it as Ipswich, Sheffield and Glasgow are vying for the top spot. Edinburgh are there now because home matches, but they're only +8, and really I see it's between ourselves, Ipswich and Sheffield, who's going to finish top unless Edinburgh can put a run together, but I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Stuart, no home meeting of course next weekend being the Cardiff Grand Prix, but I know you'll have one eye already on a visit to Scunthorpe next Sunday, a track that we perhaps let ourselves down around first time around.
It's us and Newcastle seem to be the only two teams that can't win there. And again, it's something we've got to be looking to get a win. Let's be honest, we have, but it's one of those meetings that for some reason Josh Ottey always seems to find his best form every time Glasgow's in town. It's not going to be easy, I'm not going to kid myself, but as you rightly say, other teams seem to win. We've got to look at this because they're down near the bottom, and we will be looking to try and win the meeting next Sunday there. Just hope that obviously the guys are racing during the week, but it's a meeting we've got to target a win. I know we always win. I think we won once at Scunthorpe in 2011, but it's a meeting that we have got to try and win next Sunday. It would be nice, maybe try and put a bit of daylight between us and the other two teams I just mentioned, but it's going to be tough because we don't have a good record there, but we have riders who can ride the place. Richie Worrell scored 13 there, guesting for someone I can't remember. I think it was Newcastle, won the last 3 races, 11, 13 and 15, big races. We've got guys that can win races there. We need to be looking to win there, but I'm under no illusions how tough it's going to be, but you rightly say we're going for a win, definitely.
Stuart, well done on banking the 5 points this weekend. Enjoy your week and rally the troops next Sunday.
Thanks guys, cheers, thank you.
Stuart Dixon, Brian, telling it as it is, as ever, and he wasn't going to lose any sleep over losing any points at Berwick, if in some people's eyes is what happened, but pleased with the way the team responded on Sunday, and in fact expected to trounce Berwick.
Yeah, I mean, when I spoke to him on Sunday night myself, it wasn't too disheartened by things. I think maybe if he'd been speaking Saturday night, he might have been a little bit more disappointed, but probably on reflection, quite happy to take 5 points away from the weekend. He is really starting now to look at who our title challengers are, and starting to focus his attentions on them, and I think that's important. I think it's fairly clear that we are going to make it into the playoffs now. There's a couple of other contenders starting to emerge. Like I mentioned, Ipswich earlier on, they're starting to look like a form team at the moment. So Stuart's now starting to focus his attention on them, and he usually sits at home with a calculator and the fake programmes and things. So I'm sure he'll be doing that for the next few months while he tries to work out what's going to happen. And hopefully he can produce a bit of the Jose Mourinho magic to get us over the line.
He certainly does his homework away from the track, Stuart, and he knows all the teams inside out and their form around the country, home and away. And no team are going to sneak up on us unnoticed, that's for sure. Okay, Brian, well, if that was the weekend past, let's have a look forward to this weekend. No Ashfield action, of course, but a big weekend for the sport in this country, kicking off at Somerset on Friday.
Yep, we've got the championship pairs at Somerset, which is always a big meeting. It's always a hotly contested meeting as well, and probably one of the hardest meetings of the year to predict. I think the hosts have only won it 2 or 3 times since it's been staged there, so it just shows how wide open it is. And when you look at some of the pairings this year, there really are some strong contenders. You've got duos like Danny King and Rory Schlein, 2 of the top riders in the country. You've got Robert Lambert and Steve Worrell, again, 2 Team GB members in one team. I think our guys have got a decent chance, Richard and Aaron. Of course, Richard is now technically a home rider there, having signed for Somerset in the Premiership this year to double up. and you'd hope that his home track knowledge would help us out there. They've done pretty well in the past. Last year we got to the semi-finals and were just put out by Edinburgh, who I would suggest aren't quite as strong this year. So yeah, it's going to be tough. Another pairing I think is, we've got Chris Harris and Jack Holder for Peterborough as well as another one you've got to look at as potential winners. So it's going to be a really tough meeting for everyone, including our guys. But hopefully Richard can use some of his knowledge. Aaron's going fairly well at the moment, so it's anyone's really. I think it's such a wide open meeting.
Yep, I think our lads will relish the challenge, and as you say, Brian, they stand as good a chance as any other pairing, I think, in the field. Of course, there'll be hundreds, literally, of Glasgow fans making the annual pilgrimage for the pairs and on to Cardiff on Saturday, and I'm sure there'll be lots of noise in support for Richard and Aaron on Friday night, and of course on to Cardiff on Saturday.
Yep, the big one, the British Grand Prix at Cardiff. It was a popular meeting for fans across the country, and Glasgow no exception. They usually make their presence felt in the city centre beforehand and afterwards. So, a little bit earlier on, we managed to catch up with one of the stars of the show, if it were, behind the TV screen in the form of Natalie Clark, who of course presents the BT Sport coverage. We caught up with her earlier on about what's to come this weekend.
By a quirk of very good fortune, we're able to be joined by a special guest on tonight's TIGERBITE. Welcome, Natalie Clark, BT Sports Speedway anchor girl. Good evening to you, Natalie.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Have the storms reached you yet, Natalie?
They're certainly on their way. It's very muggy here at the moment, and there's a lot of kind of grey clouds around. But I'm hoping it kind of comes a little bit later on, because the Bellevue Colts are riding this evening. So fingers crossed for them that it stays off until a little bit later on.
Of course. Good luck to the Colts. Good luck to Messrs Bewley and Smith in particular. Natalie, first of all, thanks for joining us tonight. Huge congratulations, first and foremost, on the BT Sports Speedway coverage this season. It was a much anticipated switch of broadcaster to BT Sports, and a busy schedule to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd been working I've worked for BT Sports for 3 years now, or about 3.5 years. And I was made aware kind of at the end of 2015 that BT Sport were quite interested in the Grand Prix, the Speedway Grand Prix, which I got very excited about, obviously already working for BT and being a massive Speedway fan. So I made it known that I would be very interested in being involved if that was to happen. And of course, BT got the rights last year for the Grand Prix and the World Cup initially. And so asked me to present it, and it was something I've always wanted to do. Speedway is a big passion of mine, and like I say, I was already working for BT, so kind of put the two and two together, and it worked really well, I think. And Scott kind of continued doing what he'd been doing for a few years. I know Scott anyway from years of kind of watching him, but also he was a Bellevue rider at the time, so there was no barriers to kind of overcome there. And we had a really good first year, and then kind of over the winter there was kind of rumours or murmurs that Sky Sports were going to continue with their domestic coverage, and I think from a BT point of view it made sense to take on the domestic league, and talks happened over the winter, and asked me to kind of carry on doing that as well. And it's I always say it's like my Christmases have come at once, because this is something that I've wanted to do since I was kind of following Speedway, and reporting on Speedway. That's how I kind of started out. When I knew I wanted to be a journalist, I was about 13, 14, and I was interviewing riders at Bellevue, and I remember seeing Susie Perry in the pits and kind of going up to her and asking her how she got into doing what she was doing, and now all these years later it's kind of come full circle really, and I'm doing what I absolutely love doing.
Wonderful. A Speedway marriage made in heaven, Natalie.
Yeah.
So Natalie, talk us through your career up until the point where you joined BT Sports. Did you start with local media and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so like I say, when I was really young when I knew I wanted to be a journalist, say 13, 14. So I started writing for my kind of school newspaper and was kind of told to get as much experience as you possibly can. And already going to Speedway, I kind of put the two and two together. So like I say, that's where, Speedway kind of really helped my career, right from the beginning. And I did an article for my school newspaper on Speedway. And whilst I was at Bellevue, the editor of the programme at the time, Eddie Garvey, said, "Oh, why don't you do a little bit of a report on your day in the pits?" And that kind of, that then went into a weekly, I had my own weekly column in the Bellevue programme at like 13, 14, and then started venturing out into other areas of media. So I was quite interested in print media, then kind of went into broadcasting, and I ended up being kind of BBC Radio Manchester's Speedway reporter, at the age of 14. So it was giving me a lot of experience. It was, I was gaining a lot of contacts, which is, really important in this age. Went to university and did a journalism degree, and was freelancing for about 18 months after I graduated in radio. So I'd kind of moved away from print journalism, wanted to go into radio. So I was freelancing for about 18 months, and then I got my first job at a local commercial radio station called Tower FM, which is based in Bolton, Greater Manchester. So I was there for about 3 years, and then moved over to a station called Radio City, which is in Liverpool, and I was there as the deputy news and sports editor for 7 years, working on the breakfast show. But because I did the breakfast shift, I was able to do other stuff in the afternoon and the evenings, and so I then started to do a little bit of work in TV. And I was doing some stuff for a station called Premier Sports, which now covers the Swedish League. So you might have seen a bit of their coverage.
Okay, yeah.
Swedish League. And so I was working for them. I was doing rugby league actually for them. Rugby league, I was doing stock cars for them, the coverage there. I did some work for a local station called Channel M, based in Manchester, and Man United TV. And then it was after that I always wanted to move into TV full time, but I was waiting for the opportunity basically, and the opportunity came up at BT Sport, and I made the move and left radio. Quite
a CV, Natalie. Very impressive indeed, and interesting to hear that Speedway was in your blood, I guess, from a relatively young age, and very refreshing for you to pin your colours to the mast. So I guess you would admit to being a Bellevue fan. Mr. Pearson is a Cradley fan. Mr. Tatum, I guess, is covering to your Lakeside, and you must be quite proud to say you're a Bellevue fan.
Yeah, I think sometimes, like with football, not a lot of people know what team I support in football, and especially when I was working in Liverpool, I had to be very careful on what I said. It was already pretty well known that I was a Bellevue fan. I've worked at Bellevue for more years than I can remember, and done pretty much every job there. I'd done worked on the program, I'd worked on their website, I'd been the centre green announcer, so it was pretty obvious that I was a Bellevue fan before I suddenly appeared on screen for BT's Speedway coverage. People already knew me as a Bellevue fan, so there was no hiding the fact, and I wouldn't want to hide the fact either. I've been going to Bellevue since about 1990, I think, was my first season. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be people that will give me stick along the way, or perhaps abuse me about it. But yeah, I'm a proud Bellevue fan.
Quite right too, Natalie.
Does that make your job more difficult or easier when you've got that? You've got knowledge of Speedway, I suppose. So doing your job, that makes it easier. But at the same time, you've got to be as neutral as you can and not throw too many opinions in there.
Yeah, because I suppose that there will be a few people that don't know I'm a Bellevue fan. It certainly helps, especially in a sport like this. It's such a niche sport, and I think sometimes if you don't know, or you come across like or I slip, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm sure I'll slip up at some point, and I'm sure I'm bound to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, but I think with a sport like this, it really helps that I've followed it and been a fan for the years that I have done, and I know the riders already, so that really does help. But yeah, when when our first meeting was Poole against Bellevue, and so I had to be, I can't speak. I'm not going to speak to you now until I have to interview you, and I have to be careful on what words I use, because if I'm talking about Bellevue, I'll say we or I'll say us. Well, I can't do that anymore. And yeah, I have to be very fair, and hopefully that's come across as well, that I'm impartial, and maybe those people that don't know I'm a Bellevue fan then won't be able to tell on that particular broadcast. We've got Bellevue coming up as our next league meeting on Monday the 24th. It's Bellevue against Wolves. So again, maybe Peter Adams may have a little dig, but I will try to be as impartial as I can be.
Your secret's safe with us, Natalie. We'll be watching you closely on the 24th. Natalie, in terms of the structure and I guess the design of the Speedway coverage on BT Sports, did you have any input to that? And did you bring your knowledge in terms of, it's a feature, of course, that you happen to be hanging around the pits these days, which Sky Sports didn't always.
Yeah, in terms of the domestic league, you mean?
Yeah.
It was we did talk about it, and they do kind of take on my ideas and my thoughts. It was very much down to a guy called Steve Saint, though, who's the producer on the domestic Speedway, but he's been involved in Speedway for many years, because he's also producer for the World Feed on the Grand Prix. So he's been in and around Speedway for years. So he's been to all these tracks before. He knows the riders, and once he'd had the discussions with BT, I think he had in his mind what he wanted to do with it. I think it's been well publicised that we don't have a massive budget to do this, and we came in, at the 11th hour. BT Sport came in at the 11th hour, really. So in terms of a massive production, we're very much back to basics, I suppose. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible and as accessible as possible. So to have me, in the middle of the pits, not in, a big fancy studio anywhere, I'm kind of in amongst it. So it means I can go and speak to the riders if and when, and whenever there's a break or whenever we feel it's appropriate to go speak to a rider, I can go and speak to somebody, or I can go, into the crowd and speak to the fans. I'm not kind of perched up on a studio where nobody can get to me and I can't get to them. So, and like I say, the budget is a big thing as well. But in terms of like I'll be in constant communication with the producer during a meeting. If I think we should be speaking to a certain rider, I'll say, right, I'm going to go and get whoever it is. Pavel Shapelski the other night, he'd won his first race, in British Speedway. I thought it was a good time to go and speak to him, and fortunately we spoke to him, and then of course he had his horrific crash afterwards.
Sure.
That was such an eventful meeting on Monday night. I don't think I've seen a meeting like it. It had everything. But yeah, the producer will always take on board my thoughts as well. So we had a discussion about going to Leicester City Football Club before the last meeting, just to make that connection there. And I've given him some ideas for what we should do for the opening of our next meeting at Bellevue, and it will be largely based on the history of Bellevue being the oldest club. So yeah, we'll always take on board my thoughts and the thoughts of everybody else. We're not a massive team, but we all have an input, and we've all got one goal, and we hopefully are doing a good job, and hopefully people like it and they come on board with it, and fingers crossed BT will see that we've done an okay job and carrying it on for next season.
Absolutely, Natalie, thank you.
We obviously speak to you just a few days before the biggest meeting in Britain, certainly of the year, the Grand Prix down at Cardiff. What will your weekend look like in terms of the TV coverage, and when do you need to arrive on site and do rehearsals and things like that?
So the same will apply how we did the World Cup. So I actually will be travelling down tomorrow. So Thursday I'll be travelling down, and that's mainly because we set up interviews on Friday morning, so it's quite a drive for me, so I didn't want to be kind of driving there Friday morning, so I'm going to be there in good time Thursday evening, and I'll be in the pits reporting for the Grand Prix like I was with the World Cup. And Susie Perry will be coming in to present in the studio. So our studio at Cardiff will be, so we'll all be on site. Susie will be with Scott in a studio, which I believe is going to be on Bend 2 this time, and then I'll be down in the pits. And at the moment, we've got interviews lined up with Craig Cook, of course, a British champion and wildcard, on the Friday. We'll get some shots of some footage from the practice on Friday. I'll be on site pretty early doors. We have to go in makeup. I'll be there for quite a while, and then I go over to the fan zone with Scott. So we have a bit of fun over at the fan zone just after midday on Saturday. And then we go back to we have like a big Winnebago. When it's a big event like this, we get treated to a big Winnebago that we can all hang out in, and we have our production meeting in there and run through our kind of running order of what's going to happen and when. And our coverage starts on Saturday at 4:30. So, and I think Heat 1 is about 5:15. So we'll have a good 45-minute build up, and I'll be doing a bit of a pits walk. We'll try and talk to Ty Woofenden certainly, and potentially Jason Doyle as well, who's currently leading the championship. And then it's all go, and then it's whatever happens, and that's the exciting part of live TV.
It'll be an exciting day for you, I'm sure, Natalie. And listen, I'm sure poor Kelvin will need more makeup than you do, Natalie.
Although Scott spent quite a while in the makeup room, he loves it in there.
I bet he does. Natalie, you've clearly been involved in the sport, and your knowledge goes back, as you say, to the early 90s or thereabouts. And if you don't mind me saying, when I hear you talk about Speedway publicly on TV or otherwise, you always sound very optimistic and very positive about the sport, and so you should. And I just wondered what your thoughts were in terms of is the sport in this country going in the right direction? Do you feel?
I'd like to think so. I like to say I try to be positive. I think a lot of people are of the view at the moment that certainly the Premiership is a bit watered down from what it used to be, and I don't know if that's because of the riders that are in it. Like we've only got three full-time Grand Prix riders that are in the Premiership. I mean, I always say I would have loved to have seen Speedway in its heyday, when Bellevue were riding at Hyde Road and they were getting 40,000 on the terraces, and not just for a British Grand Prix at Cardiff. I would have loved to have experienced that era, and I'd love for it to get back to, to that kind of, recognition. And I think Speedway's experiencing a difficult time at the moment. But I kind of, with the new national stadium, I was hopeful that this could be, the turn of something, new, and get more people through the turnstiles at Manchester. But I think it's been well documented the struggles that Bellevue had over the winter. New management has come in, and there's still lots to do. There's still lots to do, not just for Manchester, but I think. For everybody. And I always, it's funny because Glasgow is one of the clubs that I always look to, and I always think you're doing things up there the right way, in the way, your PR machine and the publicity that you generate and the advertisement that you generate, I think is commendable. I think you're doing a fantastic job up there, and I think there's a lot of Speedway clubs that could probably take a leaf out of your book up there. But I think it's still going through a difficult period. I think there could be more support for Team GB and what they're doing and what they're trying to do. I think there's a lot of work to be done, I think.
Thanks, Natalie.
You just mentioned Glasgow there, and of course you have visited us at Glasgow. You were present end of last season for the KO Cup final, I think it was. What do you remember of that night, and what were your thoughts and experiences of being at Glasgow for the first time?
Well, It was funny because a couple of friends of mine at Bellevue had already travelled up to Glasgow a couple of times and kept saying to me how how much they enjoyed it and how I should come. And I've got a couple of friends up in Glasgow as well, and said you'd be welcome anytime. So I said right, I've got a free kind of date in my diary. Let's go up, and a couple of us came up, and yeah. Really, really friendly club. That's what that was my impression of it, really. Such a welcoming, such a friendly club, well-run club from what I can gather. New facilities have been improved all the time, and the track. And then was invited to hand out the trophy and the medals as well, which I wasn't expecting at all. It was a really good experience, and I've said I'll definitely be back at some point. It's it was I really enjoyed being there. I really enjoyed my time there.
Thanks for your comments about Glasgow, Natalie. We might not win too many things, but we are friendly. We like to think anyway. I remember the trophy presentation, Natalie, when the champagne was sprayed. You done a fine impression of a sprinter to get away from the place.
Yeah, I've not handed out many trophies, but having attended stock car meetings and speedway meetings and football presentations, I knew what was coming. So as soon as I saw the bottles kind of coming over, I knew it was time to make my exits. So I think I did get sprayed a little bit, but I put my running shoes on for that bit.
And talking of the future, Natalie, the future of the sport we've discussed, and I'm sure you're not going to be able to give us a definite answer either way, but what are your sort of hopes and aspirations for the coverage of the sport, particularly on television? BT is now taking on the domestic coverage. I don't know how long that deal lasts for currently, but I guess it's a case of trying to show your bosses and the people who run the company that speedways are worthwhile pursuit and something that they want to show to their audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the first year of the World Cup and the Grand Prix last year was really well received, and that is a 3-year contract. So we're in the second year of a 3-year contract for the Grand Prix and the World Cup. In terms of and they're thoroughly happy with that. I mean, it was considered that me and Scott would go on site this year, but we decided against it. Maybe that is something that we could look at doing in the future, maybe, fingers crossed, and then I can tick Poland off my bucket list. So yeah, I'd love to be able to do that. I'd love to be able to get on site perhaps a little bit more. We obviously go to Cardiff, and if there's a World Cup event that's hosted over here, then we're on site for that. So I'd love to be able to go on site for more of the Grand Prix. That would be fantastic. In terms of domestic league, so this is it's just a 1-year contract at the moment, and as I say, we came into it kind of midway through the season, so every team had done at least 10 meetings before we did our first broadcast. From all the reports and fan comments and talking to promoters and to riders, everybody seems to be happy with what we're doing and impressed with what we're doing and really like what we're doing, and certainly the bosses at BT are happy so far. And I'm sure they will be. That we've got a good team doing it, what I think is a good job, and that's to the end of this season. A decision will be made come October, I believe, on whether they continue it. And like I said, I think it's great for BT because we've got Speedway, we've got all the Speedway, under one roof, and it would certainly make sense, I think. So it would be a shame to lose it, but fingers crossed they'll continue with the domestic league beyond this year, and maybe maybe take on more, maybe take on Polish league or Swedish league. I don't know what the thinking is kind of going forward, and hopefully maybe championship meetings. I know a lot of people got in touch with me about covering some championship meetings. It's something I'd love to do. I'm certainly not against doing that, so maybe that could be something that's added to the schedule as well.
Excellent, Natalie. Please keep up the good work, and we'll encourage Speedway fans out there watching TIGERBITE to share their comments back into BT Sport and help that case, Natalie. Yeah. Natalie, given that you are travelling down to South Wales tomorrow, no doubt you want to get yourself organised this evening, so we'll let you get off and get organised to head to Cardiff. Thank you very much for your time, and keep up the good work, as I say, and please do come back up to Glasgow and pay us a visit before the season's out.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. It's been lovely to talk to you, and I'll definitely be up back to Glasgow very soon.
Thank you, Natalie. Natalie Clark, they're running her eyes and thoughts across the sport internationally and domestically. What a lovely girl to talk to, and clearly very knowledgeable about the sport, and not frightened to pin her colours to the mast. A Bellevue Aces fan.
Yeah, well, hopefully she doesn't slip up on Monday night's coverage, but I'm sure we'll forgive her if she did. But yeah, a great asset to have for the sport. Another good face of the sport. Really keen to promote it, and it's great to have someone of her kind of presenting qualities to put in front, to front up the coverage of the Speedway in this country. We've been quite lucky in that respect over the last few years, of course, with Nigel Pearson and Kelvin Tatum also involved. People who are good at their job, but also very knowledgeable and really keen to push the sport forward. And great to have her on the show, and hopefully not too long till we see her at Glasgow again.
Yeah, and as Natalie mentioned, Brian, I would urge Glasgow fans watching this, or indeed supporters of any club side watching this programme, just to take 2 minutes out of your day tonight or tomorrow, and why not drop a tweet or an email or something similar to BT Sports and just compliment them on their Speedway coverage.
Yeah, definitely, because we want to keep that up next season. We've obviously, as Natalie mentioned, we've got the international coverage at least until the end of next year. But we want to see those domestic meetings staying on BT Sport. I think they've done an excellent job of it so far. I think it's really freshened it up, and they've given a different slant to it after the great job that Sky did all those years. It's just given a new angle to it, and some new faces, and I don't think that does it any harm.
Yep. So our thanks to Natalie for joining us on TIGERBITE tonight. And then on to Sunday, Brian, that many of those Tigers fans who have made their way down to Somerset and or Cardiff will then go cross-country over to the East Coast to watch the Tigers at Scunthorpe on Sunday. Now, surely that is a must-win.
Well, I sort of quashed your comment about Berwick being a must-win, but I think, had we been sitting here this time last week previewing the Berwick match, I probably would have said something different, and I'll say the same this week. I do think it's one that we need to go out and win at. I think we're one of the only teams not to have won at Scunthorpe this year, particularly among our rivals at the top of the league. The league's still so unpredictable that I don't think you can ever guarantee a win anywhere, because teams can turn up on a day. We have seen it already. Scunthorpe have turned up on a couple of occasions and fended off the attentions of some of the big boys. But I think, given we've got likes of Knight Cluna, former Scunthorpe rider on our team, we've got other guys who do go well there. I know Tom Perry likes it down at Scunthorpe as well. I think we have got to be targeting that one as a win, and I'd quite like to see us go and get all 4 points there, really. I think that's the kind of statement that we maybe need to start making now as the season moves on.
It's got to be the target, and last week Richie Worrell publicly commented that the team need to live up, I guess, to the aspirations of the club and the supporters. We're in a healthy league position at the moment. We've earned that right, but we've got to live up to that and maintain that and kick on, I guess.
Yeah, the comment that Stuart made at the start of the season was that he felt that as a team, because we had a couple of the younger guys there getting used to this league, is that we would get better as the season went on, and perhaps then peak as it came to the playoffs, which is obviously the important bit. So yeah, I think it's time that we, I think we've been doing a great job so far, and I think we just need to keep doing that. Keep the consistency up is the important thing, and maybe just start to kind of push things a little bit further away from home now. Go and get a few extra points. Go and really stamp our authority away from home, and give our rivals at the top of the league something to think about for when we do meeting them, in the latter stages of competition further on in the season.
So there we are, Brian. We've cast our eyes backwards and forwards over the last weekend and the coming weekend. So fingers crossed Tigers can indeed produce a win at Scunthorpe on Sunday to bolster our league charge. We will be back on TIGERBITE again next midweek, and we'll be previewing a rather tasty looking visit to Ashfield yet again by Ipswich Witches, Brian.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that long ago since we had them last time, but back again, and the big fixtures just keep on coming at the moment. It's great for the fans. probably a little bit nerve-wracking for some of the guys at the club, but this is what we want to be. We want to be in these big matches, and I look forward to previewing that one next week.
Indeed. Thanks for your company, Ryan. Thanks for talking us through all the reviews and previews. Glasgow fans, enjoy your trip south this weekend to Somerset and Cardiff and on to Scunthorpe if you're going to do the 3 in 3 days. And we look forward to your company again next midweek back on Tiger Bite. Until then, good night.
Good night.